can you talk a little bit about like where you received some of those messages of like, you know, seeing your bodies, not necessarily your own body, but like Black bodies as sexual like things?
I think it definitely comes up in music, particularly rap, R&B music. I think that the female body is something that, in that sense, in music, is something that should be treasured and is something that's like viewed as like sexual. And in real life, that exact thing causes women to be cautious of how they present themselves because they don't want to be hypersexualized. So I think it's very difficult trying to find the line to basically make a boundary for, because, well, you're being portrayed in this song as one thing, but in real life you don't want that kind of pressure on yourself, one, to be portrayed as a sexual object and then to be possibly objectified. So I think it's very difficult to draw the line of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, especially when it comes to the female body.
I see that a lot in rap music, yeah, from a lot of male rappers, but even like female rappers. For example, Megan Thee Stallion is one of my favorite artists, and
Body, yaddy, yaddy, yaddy.
she is like very hypersexual, and I love it because I think it's her being that 14-year-old who is also catcalled, who is also accosted. Her whole name is because of one encounter when I think she said she was 13, and some random guy was like, "You're a stallion, you're this, you're that." And she went home and like crying to her parents, like, "What does this mean?" And they tried to turn it into a positive thing, but I think at the time it wasn't, because she's 13, right. She didn't know. But I think her purpose is to have women tap into that sexuality, not because they are sexual, but just because now it's our power now. Like, it's right. Not the male's power. They can't tell you who you are because you're going to tell them who you are. That sort of thing. So I think it's very, like you said, it's very hard to draw a boundary.
Well, I think also with that, with Meg Thee Stallion, right, it's like, yes, women are sexual beings, right? But like, we don't need to be hypersexualized, you know, as children, and even, you know, growing into adulthood, like our sexuality is for ourselves, like our pleasure is for ourselves. And I think that's an important message.
Exactly.
I agree. Like, I think it's definitely up to us to be able to choose when we want to be sexual or when we want to have our bodies seen, but it shouldn't be the man's choice to decide, okay, I see her walking on the street minding her business, let me catcall her, or let me tell her something about her body that she probably already knows. I don't think it should be something that is pointed out unless you feel comfortable with it. I don't think it's necessary all the time, if that makes sense.
I remember specifically when who was it, J-Lo and Ja Rule came out with I'm Real, and watching that video, and I'm like, I don't look like her. Or like watching other videos, and like, I don't look like them. I can't do what they do. And like, I had no business doing what they were doing at that age, but I thought like that was what it meant to be beautiful, is like to be like sexual in this way. And I'm just like, there's a lot that I didn't know that I didn't know. But I think for me, part of that, like watching that, is just like feeling like not really seeing myself in those spaces. So part of that too was also not feeling like desired or like attractive and like all these things, especially when we talk about like complexion, right? Like a lot of them were like light skin, just like, that's also not me. So it definitely like had an impact in how I viewed myself, and like sort of how I navigated what it means to be like conventionally beautiful, and what does like your own beauty look like.
If you're a woman and you don't show like that you're hypersexual, or like that you own your sexuality, it's like you're not attractive, then nobody wants you. Like, oh, she's like a prude, she doesn't want to do anything sexual, she just wants to be like a square. But it's like, why do I have to like force myself to like act sexual or like show my sexuality when I don't want to? Like, that's something that's personal to me, and if I want to showcase that, then I will. But if I don't, that doesn't make me less than a woman, less than a, like, you know, that doesn't take away my femininity, if that makes sense too.
Yeah, and when I think about why feminism is important, it's because it's about choice, right? Having that choice to be all body yaddy like Meg Thee Stallion, but also like wrapped up like India.Arie, like, you know, all can exist, and you know, it's not to be one to shame the other, but to allow space for all of us to show up the way that we are, however we feel comfortable. And also, like, we're all entitled to our journey. So it may not always look the same, but that's fine. Like, we're allowed to figure it out because we're complex human beings that's dealing with a lot of layered stuff. And we need the space to sort of work through that, and the community to hold us and support us while we do that.
Do you guys feel like as the generations have gone by, women or African American girls are starting to become a little bit more, or show off their bodies a little bit more at a younger and younger age?
I want to say yes and no all at the same time. I think kids in general are really just growing up a lot younger than I think any of us could. Like, I like to call it second child syndrome. Like, my mom, she lets my sister get away with, I would like to call it murder, because this girl does everything she wants. And I'm like, okay, but when I was this age, you would never. And she was like, listen, she's my second kid. I don't have the energy left after you. But I think it really depends. I think it's a regional thing. Like, for example, like, I come from Jersey. I think girls over there, everyone's developing, thinking, doing, listening, watching, things that are, I think, a little too grown up. I know that's very, like, subjective. But yes and no. I think it really is regional, and it depends where you come from.
I definitely agree that it depends where you are, because I feel like I go back and forth to Jamaica a lot to visit family and stuff, and I find that when I'm there, seeing the kids like grow up, it's just very it makes my heart feel warm inside, because it's like, this is what childhood is about. Mm-hmm. It's about playing games and like making friends. It's not about like taking a selfie, or like, it's not about how you like are perceived to other people. I think it's about having fun and enjoying those steps of life that are very important and things that you remember when you're older. So I think there's definitely a cultural difference as well. Like, I see a lot of that. I see a lot of body hypersexualization, and I see a lot of like, okay, how can what's next? What can I post on Instagram, or what can I post on Snapchat?
And I feel like also it's like, in terms of the amount of exposure, like here in America, like we're exposed to so many things, and with the internet and social media, like there's this constant pressure to like look a certain way, or like, okay, like you said, I gotta post this picture a certain way so that I get the likes and the attention, because that's what society's telling me is okay. But when you look back at like other communities, and kids are being kids, they're having fun, they're playing. Girls my age are probably like not even thinking about half the things I am, and just enjoying their youth. And that's something that I feel like we're losing here in America. Like, we're losing that essence of youthfulness.
I think similar to what you've already mentioned, like I think that we're living in a highly digital age, right? Mm-hmm. So the access to information, technology, social media definitely does shift things, especially like with like folks more like oriented to like posting things on Snapchat, social media, Instagram, Facebook, like much earlier on. So I think that does impact how, I guess, girls are interacting with that. I think it would have looked different for me if I had access to all that technology when I was that age. And I also think about the ways that like the black women's bodies are violated in so many different spaces. One of the things that I comes to mind is, I can't remember where this was, but when in the school where the resource officer came in to remove a black girl from the classroom, and she didn't want to get up, and he like threw her across mm-hmm. the classroom, right? So when I think about the idea of safety and mattering, like in so many ways, black girls get the message that like you don't, right? Black girls go missing every single day, and don't receive very little attention about that. So I think all of these things are connected. In terms of like that perception of worthiness and being seen.
I remember in high school, my AP government teacher did a project where he sent a white girl with a smaller frame and a black girl with a more curvy frame to walk through the halls. Both of them had on the same exact skirt. They had the same waist size, so it was the same size skirt and the same length. The white girl was able to pass through the halls, no issue. The black girl, she ended up getting in-school suspension because her skirt was too short. And it was amazing to me to see, like, it was the same exact skirt, but because her body was different, she missed out on a chance for education. And it's just crazy to me to think that can happen.